Welcome to Murder.
And everything else.
My name is Joy.
And my name is Cheryl. And Joy and I are old friends that are going to chit chat about, you guessed it, murder and everything else.
Yay!
Although today there might not be any murder, I'm not sure. Unless it has anything to do with a date.
Yeah, maybe it could be like murder on a date.
Stay tuned.
So before we get into the meat and potatoes of this week, let's go over our highs and lows. You want to go first?
Yes, I will go first. Okay, so my high again involves a dog, but it's more about like the human spirit, which really uplifted me. So Kevin had gone to the park with Bodie, our white husky, who we rescued off the streets. And there was a little girl and her mom there at the park, and the girl asked, I think Kevin said she was about maybe 9 or 10, and she asked if she could pet Bodie. So Kevin was like, yeah, of course, just put your back of your hand out and whatever. So she's petting Bodie, and Bodie is so sweet. Let me tell you, I know I've said it before, but he is very sweet. And so Kevin started telling the mother how I had found him and the whole story. And so he's talking to the mom, and then he looks down at the little girl, and she's all teared up. Her eyes, she's all tearing up. She's just choked up from hearing the story. And then she goes, I don't understand why people are mean to animals. She's like, she was so touched. And then that made me touched that, a child is so like, has such a heart for animals, and then the whole story, but yeah, he looked down at her and she was all teary-eyed. No, but I just thought it was so sweet. I don't know if it's just like like with Kevin, he's very sensitive, so he may not want Kevin. He'll be fine with this, but he's very sensitive. So if I tell him something, that's emotional or touching, or if I cry, Kevin cries, poor guy. But so he told me that, and it just made I was just so happy that a child was, you know what I mean? She was so like in tune with, yeah, it was just very sweet. He said she was just there. She was all teary eyed. She said, I just can't believe some people are, that mean to animals. So anyway, that was my high. I thought it was really sweet. Okay, my low. So I've been looking for jobs. I want to work from home. And so a lot of these, they do everything now is online. It's digital. You don't even have to go in, right, to see these people during the interview phase. Obviously, during the training, I probably will have to actually go in and see real people. But they have you do these assessments. Okay, so it's like a test basically. For grammar and there's this test that I really liked where it was side by side series of letters and numbers, and you had to look and see if they were the same or different. And sometimes just one digit would be different. But I'm pretty good at that. Like I can, as soon as I look at it, I can see whether it's the same or different. Anyway, so I'm acing through this thing, right? I mean, which sentence is the properly written, blah blah blah. And then we get to the math. And I am just like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, am I this stupid? And then it says, do not use a calculator. And I'm like, why? I mean, if I'm doing a remote job, you bet your ass I'm going to be sitting here using a calculator. Nobody's watching me. There's no glory in being able to do it longhand. I mean, I'm like, why? And so, but I tried listening to them. There was another assessment that said you can use the calculator, and they provided one in like the corner of the page. And, because I don't understand why, but a calculator did not help me when it came to like the word problems. And it might just be like a mental block I have. But when I was a child, I hated word problems. Like if Timmy's riding his bike at 15 miles an hour, like I hated word problems. So it's probably a mental block. So as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh no. And then so I struggled through that, and there were multiple choices. So sometimes I just went, and I just picked one. But you know what I really can't do is percentages. Like I don't know percentages. Like I can't figure out percentages. Like I can figure out a percent. Okay, if this costs this much and it's this much tax, I can do that. But like some of,
How about if it's a tip? Can you figure out the tip?
yeah, yeah. But this was like, um, uh, if something was, if something was, X amount, and we, we sold it for this, what was the percentage that was, what percentage did we discount it at, or whatever? I that was my low. Anyway, that was my low. I was like, I cannot do. I am so good thing I don't have kids who are coming to me to help them with their homework, because I'd be like, I don't know. Look it up. Google it. All right, that was my low. How stupid I am at math.
Well, it's not stupid. It probably just means that you had a really bad math teacher
Math teacher.
or a series of really bad math teachers because I mean, one of these weeks we're going to have to talk about going back to your school, going back to school in your 50s, because it literally, like, because all the classes that I didn't take in college that I put off until my 50s were, of course, math classes. And I discovered several things. One is I'm really good at math. Two,
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah. Two,
Awesome.
I'm really good at word problems because I'm
Oh,
really good at math. But you know what it
where
was?
were you when I was taking this test?
Right. You know what it was? I literally had. So first of all, we have to, like, we're going to talk about this sometime. I have periods of time in my elementary school studies that I was homeschooled. We also moved every 2 years, sometimes less, from home to home growing up. We never stayed anywhere longer than 4 years. So I have a lot of start and stop educational stories, sometimes starting the same school year and finishing the same school year in different schools with different teachers. And so I missed a lot of integral, like, years where we would have learned, let's say, the order of operations, or the year where we would have learned, I mean, for example, I missed all of United States history, all of it.
Oh, yeah, let's not talk about history and geography. Remember British Isles?
Tell you when the War of 1812 happened. I mean, I know that sounds really stupid, but
1812?
I mean, but I could tell you about the Hundred Years' War, and I could tell you about, Pope Pius II, and I can tell so there's all these gaps in my learning. But anyway, it turned out I was really good at math, and I had to pat myself on the back because I was pretty sure that there was, like, some kind of mild mental or cognitive, like, disability there, and it turns out there wasn't. I just had piss poor, like, math teachers and continuity, and I can tell you exactly when I stopped being able to do math, and then I was able to start again in my early 50s. So
Well, at
that's
least you
a
picked
natural learning curve.
well, at least you picked it up again, because I
Yeah,
apparently didn't.
right.
And I'm not ashamed to tell anybody listening to this, that it was horrible. But I excelled at the other stuff, and I'm sure that my I can't even my disability with math has been made up in other ways. I'm sure I'm just like excellent in other things. I'm sure that God like made up for it somewhere else. I don't know, but it was pretty, yeah, it was pretty humbling. Yeah. What's
Well,
your high and low?
let's see. I'm going to start out with my high.
Okay.
No, yeah, I'm going to start with the high. The high is that I went to the eye doctor and everything is great with my eyes, meaning I'm still just as blind as I was when I rolled up in there. And but I did get offered, instead of monthly disposable contacts, I got offered daily disposable contacts, which I got to tell you, the idea of daily contacts is so awesome because guess what? I'll never have to buy contact lens solution again.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
I don't have to cook or cleanse my contacts overnight. And
But is it more expensive or less expensive or same?
yeah, because the insurance covers it. But I got to be honest, one of the worst things about wearing contact lenses of any kind that require cleaning is now that you can only fly with certain amount of liquids and and then also there's the issue of me being a really bad packer, and so everything explodes when I'm traveling. So usually I get to my final destination and there's um hydrogen peroxide has leaked out on everything,
Oh
toothpaste,
gosh.
lotion. Yeah, I'm notorious. So um so now I would always have to land, go to wherever I was going, find a drugstore within several minutes of landing because I had to buy the contact lens solution. I probably left contact lens solution all over the planet because not only that, not every store you go into carries the same brand. So you have to find one that's comparable, that's not going to make your eyes burn or that's going to itch. And now that you can only travel with certain size bottles, it's like, well, do I
Yeah,
travel? And you can't travel with 20 of the small bottles. You can only travel with one of them. So
mhm.
the idea of going to dailies is so exciting. Of course, the first thought that came to my mind was, how much waste is this going to generate? Because
Yeah.
I feel like we should be getting away from generating waste instead of heading towards waste. But anyway,
Oh well.
yeah, the
Don't
low,
bog yourself down with that. The
right.
next the younger generation will figure it out.
That's that's right. As they're jumping
Sorry.
from lava rock to lava rock because the floor is lava. You know that game that you used to play where you jump from furniture to furniture? Anyway, um, and the low is we have a crazy cat that is scratching up the door jambs. And because my husband was out of town all weekend, he didn't wake up at 4:30 when the cat would scratch because that's when she wants her breakfast. So I came up with a workaround, and that is a locker in the laundry room overnight. But I didn't think about giving her a litter box or a bed. I just
Mm.
locked her in the laundry room because she always makes a bed on all the dirty laundry anyway.
Mhm.
Washer open so she can crawl in the washing machine and sleep in the washing machine. Don't worry, I didn't do the laundry with the cat in the washing machine. That's
Yeah.
not the low.
But I bet you were tempted.
Oh yeah, the low is I walked in the next morning to a giant mess because the cat is shit all over the floor. So I ran out and bought a litter box, new litter, a cat bed, the whole 9 yards, set her up in the laundry room, only to walk in this morning. And I'm not kidding you. She had somehow managed to spray kitty litter all over the entire
Oh.
laundry room, including, please tell me, how did it get in the washing machine? I mean, it's like she rolled in it, jumped in the washing machine, and was like, this is what you're going to have to go through for locking me in here.
Oh no. Those little things are it's like having sand everywhere.
I had to start my morning with completely gutting the laundry room and like vacuuming it out and clean. I mean, it was just what a
Well,
mess.
did she go potty at least in the pan or the box?
She did.
Okay, because that would be insult to injury. Like, screw you. Not only am I I'm gonna shit everywhere else but the litter box, and I'm gonna spread the litter all over the place.
I mean, I really, really have warmed to one of these two cats that we have. And the one that is now banished to the laundry room at night is not the one I've warmed to. So I have to tell you that I'm at my wit's end because if anybody wants to know what a semi-feral cat can do to a door jam, come on over to my house and I can show you because every door jam in our every I don't know what it's called, but it's the wooden thing that frames the door.
The
Every
frame.
single yeah, door frame. Every single one in our house has scratch marks.
So it's her wanting to go out or her wanting to be fed? Because I think you said that.
Well, sometimes she wants to go out, sometimes she wants to come in.
Oh,
Sometimes she got trapped in one of the kids' rooms when they were younger. Sometimes she just wants to sharpen her claws. Sometimes she wants food. I mean, I don't know because I'm not a cat, but what I do know is my patience is running very, very thin
and when does Gabe get back?
today.
Oh,
But when I was thinking about that little girl who was crying about the dog, maybe if Kevin runs into her, you could ask her if she likes cats. Because if she does, I got one for her.
I got one free of charge.
That's right.
It comes with a free bag of kitty litter and
That's
the litter
right.
box.
Right. And a washing machine full of kitty litter.
Oh man.
Well, let's go into disclaimers.
Okay.
We actually have been approved for ads, which is so exciting because for those of you who don't know what ads mean, it means that Cheryl and I will read a small little ad that could be anywhere from 10 to 20 seconds in the middle of our podcast, in the middle of talking about all this great stuff that we talk about. And that will monetize our podcast. So, based on how many people listen to our podcast, means that's the number of people who are listening to our ads.
That is
And
so exciting.
it's so exciting. Now, remember, it's cents on the dollar. It's not like we're going to be getting a big bucket full of money because I think you have to have like thousands and thousands of people listen to your podcast, but it's still kind of exciting. So,
It's very exciting. And you
yeah,
never know. Tomorrow we may wake up and we'll be in the thousands.
that's right. We do promise to make the ads short and sweet, and you'll feel like you won't even know they're happening.
Yeah, that's so exciting. It really is.
So this week we are taking a sharp left turn, and we are not going to be talking about murder. We're actually going to be talking about dating funnies, which
Yes.
are basically funny stories that have happened in dating experiences that we've had, in the immortal words of Julio Iglesias and Willie Nelson, to all the boys we've loved before. So hopefully, no, none of those boys are listening. And so we
And
can
none
tell
of our listeners know any of these boys.
exactly. And so we can tell these stories and have a little chuckle, not at anyone's expense. We're laughing with you, not at you.
They may be laughing at us. And then we also there's also the disclaimer, which is kind of late because we said a bunch of bad words already. But this is not for children. This subject matter is definitely not for children. So just keep that in mind. There's probably going to be situations that you don't want kids to hear.
That's right.
So, with
That's
that
right.
being
So
said,
I have made a personal commitment that I will not be telling any of those dating stories.
okay. All right. Okay.
Well, do you
Well,
want to start with the first story to kick us off?
Well, I think you have more, but I'll do the first one, and then the rest will be the Joy Kim show because I really didn't date a lot. You and I were talking earlier. I had boyfriends, I had relationships. I don't really remember dating a lot. But this one I do remember, and it was a doozy. So I met this guy at a dance club. I remember my friend at the time, she and I would go out dancing, and he was standing there watching us. So I started dancing with him. Anyway, I got each other's numbers. Back in the old days, you had to actually call someone on their landline. Yeah, because this was back in the 80s. Yeah. Yeah, 80s. I want to say it was the 80s. Yeah.
Kids,
Okay.
kids, there was dating happening in the 80s. Just disclaimer.
We did date even back then. Okay, and then back in the day, I was a professional dancer, and so I think the job might have been the American Music Awards. So this was a professional job. All right. I mean, like I said, I think it was the American Music Awards. It was with Kenny Ortega as the choreographer. Sweet man. He's very, very. He's worked with Michael Jackson. All this. I'm not like patting myself on the back or trying to brag, but I did work with Kenny Ortega. Anyway,
guys, just saying, as the fan club president, she was a big deal. All right.
But the only reason that I am setting it up this way is so that people can appreciate the horror that I felt. Okay, this is not some local theater, and even then there is a certain etiquette. There's just a understood etiquette. There's certain things in life you just don't do, Joy, right? Okay, but this was professional. All right, this was like professional. So I had a rehearsal, and we're at the dance studio, and I guess I told him, he could come and watch. Watch is the operative word. I told him he could come and observe. That's the operative word. So, dance studios, they have the room where the actual dance floor is, and then there's like a lobby, or a little outside that has chairs and whatever. And so we had taken a break. So we were rehearsing, and then we took a break. And so some of the dancers are still milling around in the studio, and I came out to the lobby area where my bag was to get a drink of water or whatever. So I'm drinking my water. I turn around, and this guy has Joy, he has gone into the dance studio, and he is doing a headstand. He's on his head with his feet kicked up against the wall.
That's funny.
I don't even remember if I dragged him out by his hair. I don't remember what happened or how I got him out of there. I just remember, I will never forget that image in my head of this guy putting his head down, flipping his legs over onto the ballet bars, and in the middle of this American Music Awards, okay, Dick Clark, Kenny Ortega, I'm telling you, all I remember is being in my apartment, walking back and forth, pacing on the phone, ripping him a new one. I don't remember what I said, but I was like, you are out of your effing mind. Who does that? I'm like, I'm at work.
Oh
what possessed you to get up and go in the room and start and do a headstand? And it's not like he went in there and was trying to do like some Michael Jackson moves and look at himself in the mirror. He freaking flipped over and did a headstand with his legs up against the ballet bar. I was like,
Girl, that's the spirit. The spirit took over.
Oh, I don't know. I guess.
Wait, what did he say? What did he say?
I don't remember what he said. There was just steam coming out of the top of my head, so I don't remember what he said. Needless to say, I never saw him again. That's the only dating story I can think of. I probably stopped dating after that. That probably was like it. I was like, these guys are mental. I mean, like, who would do that? What would possess you to do that?
Wow. You learned a lesson. That's hilarious.
Yeah. No. So that's
story. I mean, was he at least good at the handstand? Like, did he stick the dismount? And also, I mean, how cute was he? If he looked like Jason Momoa, I would have let him do a handstand. I'd have let him do a kickstand. I'd have let him do all kind of stand all over that dance floor. I'd have been like, this is my new backup dancer. I don't remember what his name is, but it looks like Jason Momoa. However, that was a great story, though. I have to tell you that I would have given money to see. Too bad it wasn't the digital age, because, with Kenny Ortega and Dick Clark, I mean, if that was 2023, they would have had video in there, somebody would have been recording the whole time, and then we could
Oh
have
God.
released that on TikTok and on Instagram Reels, and you would have blown up because it would have gone viral.
Yeah, it would have been like, Japanese dancer equivalent of road rage, except in the studio.
Right? Oh,
Studio rage. I don't know. It was,
that's
yeah,
pretty funny. Well,
yeah, embarrassing.
I'm gonna tell a story about a date I went on in college. So I went to a small private college, religious affiliated college in Northern California. It was the religion that I grew up in, and it was private. It was small. Most of the kids there were from this religious group that I belonged to. And so the girls had a girls' dorms, boys had boys' dorms. Girls were not allowed in boys' dorms, boys were not allowed in girls' dorms. Weren't allowed to have dances. We weren't allowed to, there were a lot of things like there was no alcohol on campus. It was a dry campus, et cetera, et cetera. So they would have these reverse weekends where girls would ask the guys out on dates. And so if there was ever a guy that you wanted to go on a date with, you would wait until reverse weekend and ask. And I was probably 22, maybe. I was, I want to say it was my senior year. And there was a guy who was very active in like the religious scene at school. And he was kind of cute, but I remember he was just always very active in the religious scene. And I just remember thinking, I bet if I asked that guy out, he would like drop this whole like holier than thou persona and actually have a good time. Because he
Hmm.
seemed like an extrovert and he seemed pretty cool. And we were in a religion class together he and he just seemed really friendly. And he was also cute. So I asked him kind of on a whim if he wanted to go to the movies
Hmm.
for this reverse weekend.
What would happen if you asked on when it wasn't reverse weekend? You
Um,
can't. You just can't.
oh, you could. It's just, again, this was like what, the early 90s. I mean, uh, I never felt like guys had to ask girls out exclusively. And I was very
Yeah.
impatient. So if I wanted to go out with somebody, I would ask. But
Okay.
9 out of 10, they would say no because it was a small school and I had a boyfriend and he was friends with a lot of people. And, they would have felt like they were doing something bad or wrong. So,
Mhm.
so anyway, so I asked him to a movie and a lot of people in my religious organization didn't like movies were going from being on the bad naughty list to going onto the okay list at this time in history. So some of the real conservative kids still wouldn't go to movies, but like a lot of the kids would go if they were a little more liberal. So I remember thinking, well, it's probably a good sign that he said yes to the movie. Well, my friend Jill, who you've met,
Mhm.
and another friend named Ward caught wind that I had asked him to the movie, and they decided to go to the movies and sit 2 or 3 rows behind
Oh,
us.
no.
And we went to see a funny movie. I want to say it was like Ace Ventura or something like that. And every time I would laugh, they would start cackling and throw popcorn at me. So,
Oh,
yeah,
shoot. No.
and the guy I had asked would start laughing. They would laugh, but it was like they would laugh, like instead of laughing normally, they would go, and then they would throw popcorn. Like, they couldn't control themselves. They were laughing so much their popcorn was flying out of their bucket.
Oh. How far back were they?
Only like a couple of rows. And after the second or third time outburst, I remember thinking, that sounds really familiar.
That cat here.
And then looking back and realizing that they were sitting back there and they were
Oh,
totally clowning me. And then, of course, they would never let me live it down. They'd always be like, remember when you went on that guy to the movies. And
Were you mad?
no, I wasn't mad. Actually, I thought it was really funny.
Oh, okay. Did he know? Did you tell him, or did he know, or what?
I said, yeah, my friends are sitting a couple rows back, and I think he felt a little offended, like we were all making fun of him. But I don't think we were. I don't think I was. I think I genuinely wanted to go on a date with him.
Yeah, but I can see how he felt that way. Like I
Right.
think your friends were just playing around with you, right? But I can see.
But it was
Yeah.
funny, and it made the movie to me even funnier. But
Yeah.
I actually have another movie date that's not anything like that one. But I went on a date with a guy. I was probably 26 or 20, 25 or 26 at this point, and we went to the movies, and we went to go see Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, I love that movie. I've seen it like a gazillion times. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really feel the same way about that movie, but I'll tell you why. We're watching the movie, and he kind of makes like a moaning sound. And
Your date?
yeah, yeah. And I look over and I'm like, what? Oh, I'm like,
Did he do the popcorn thing where they take the bottom of the popcorn?
no, he's moaning like crying sound. So I'm
Uh,
like, yeah, yeah. And it was at the part where Sally Field gets really fed up with Robin Williams. She tells him she wants a divorce, but she gets really angry. And you know how she does, like, she does a really good, like, stompy, angry
yes,
kind of like
you know what? Yeah, as soon as you said stomp, that's what I was picturing. Yeah.
yeah. I love that. I love that she's so angry, but she's like, she's trying to like hold her tongue, but she's super angry.
Mhm.
Um, I look over at this part and he's kind of weepy. And I say,
Oh no.
yeah. And I say, is everything okay? And he says, this is what my wife said to me when she left me.
Oh.
Then he reaches over and he tries to hold my hand.
Oh
I'm
no.
6. I'm
Wait, how old was he? You were in your 20s. How old was he?
I don't know. I didn't ask people.
Well, I know,
Um,
but he couldn't have been around the same. Well, I mean, he theoretically could have, but to be divorced at such in your 20s. Anyway, go ahead.
I later found out I think he'd been divorced like 3 times or something.
Oh, he must have been in his 40s, 50s.
Oh,
I know how you used to like them older, Joy.
but staying on the topic of not really finding out people's ages, I went to Berkeley once to have Korean food with this guy who lived in my apartment complex. And when you parked your car and you walked into the apartment complex, you had to kind of walk under this like breezeway area that had like a covering. And underneath were like some mailboxes and maybe like the office. And his apartment was above. So he could literally see everybody as they were coming home. But this guy would see when my car would pull in and when I would be coming home. I actually ended up starting to park in another area and walking like the back way up to my apartment so that he couldn't see after this after we stopped going out. But we had hung out a couple times, and then he asked me on like a date.
Mhm.
And so I said, okay. And we went to Berkeley, which was maybe an hour and a half drive. And we went to a Korean restaurant and we're sitting down at the Korean restaurant. And I said, how is it that you like Korean food? And he said, oh, well, I was stationed in Korea, South Korea in 68 and 69 after the war.
Oh, good Lord. Oh
And
my
I go,
gosh.
oh, I go, oh, oh. I was like, in my mind, doing some quick math, thinking, well, I was born in 1968. So what are the chances that we're in the same ballpark when it comes to age? Not
Well,
that
what did
I'm ageist at all. It's just, you know, when you're 24, 25 years old,
yeah, yeah. No,
date tells you that they're like 48 or 49 or 50. It's like, whoa.
well,
Like,
what did so how did he look? If it, obviously I mean,
He looked I can't tell you because I mean,
But
I
it
mean I remember what he looked like then, but I mean, I don't know. Uh I didn't necessarily look at him and think he didn't look old, but he didn't
no,
look.
but you were surprised by that, right? So
Oh
you
yeah,
must have.
I was totally thrown for a loop.
Oh my
And
god.
but I thought it was really funny. I mean, that's not why we didn't go out anymore. We did go out a little bit after that, but
Yeah.
I think it was just generational differences. I mean, plus I was really enjoying being single at the time. So
You don't want to be tied down with somebody
yeah,
that's
I
twice your
couldn't
age.
yeah, I just also I don't know if you were I think we've talked about this. You weren't really into Sex in the City, the show, and I really was. I felt like that was uh, I was single. I was not married until I think the last season of Sex in the City.
Mm,
So all of those dating stories and dating episodes and her single life living in the city and I was single and living in a city in Portland. I just felt like, you know, there was so much relevance to what was happening, because they covered so much social issues and, just all kinds of different things that happen when you're single and dating. And, I carried much cheaper purses and didn't wear the kind of shoes that she was wearing in the show or the, designer names.
mhm.
But, I mean, but still, it was just, I
Relatable.
always felt like there were all these like correlations between, Carrie Bradshaw being single and I was single, and we were doing all the same things. And everybody knew somebody who had had the things that had happened to her in that show. If it hadn't didn't happen to me, it had happened to someone that I knew.
Right.
And so it was great. It was like, oh, they're gonna talk about peeing on people and they're gonna talk about, dating older guys. And so yeah, I mean, and when you're single, I was single, I didn't get married until I was 34, which is not ancient, but it's also not, really young.
I think that's a great age. I think
Yeah.
30s is good.
Yeah, so I mean, I had lots of fun dating escapades, and I
Mhm.
also had lots of weird dating escapades.
Yes,
So,
we know. That's gonna be a whole show on its own.
right, the weird ones,
Mhm.
and also the online ones. We're gonna do a deep dive into like dating apps and online dating. So stay
Yeah.
tuned for that.
So,
Um,
speaking of age gaps, like, what do you think about a 20-year age difference? You think that's
well, I think it depends on like where the person is in their maturation process. I think that sometimes um if yeah, so let me say this. If a- most women in their 20s and teens and 20s, especially um if they're really career driven or if they're really like academically driven, generally don't want to have children. And so, because it's not on their radar and because they're not worried about it. And also, the other thing is, there's a lot of options nowadays for women that weren't available that nobody talked about when I was in my 20s and 30s. Like, nobody talked to me about banking my eggs so that I could have children later if I wanted to in my 40s.
mm,
And nobody talked about, just in vitro was still a fairly new thing that people were experimenting with when I was in my 30s. And there were even women who used in vitro who I specifically remember a friend being very hush hush and saying, please don't ever tell my sister that I told you that she used in vitro because she doesn't want anyone to know and she wants everyone to believe that she conceived naturally. And I was like, okay. I mean, now, if she were to pop up pregnant at 43, with, quadruplets, nobody would believe it,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Because
So,
that's just not a natural occurrence ever, ever, ever. Even twins nowadays, a lot of times is not a natural occurrence because, you can implant two embryos and have them stick instead of, implanting one. And then
mhm.
get all the kids out of the way at once so you don't have to keep having, going through that process because it's expensive it's invasive, it's hard on your body, I mean,
Mhm.
pregnancy it's like, it's a lot of work. But so there was also social stigma, and a lot of older women like my mother's age would say things like, well, she couldn't have or natural babies on her own. I'm like, mom, having a baby is not natural anyway, so who really cares? So I was like, if you get a baby, I don't care how you get it, like, you got a baby, like, it's not a
Mhm.
big deal whether somebody stuffed it in there with a turkey baster or whether somebody stuffed it in there, you know with the old fashioned method. You know what I mean? It's like, it got in there. Bravo. You know.
Yeah.
So I think that, I think that if it's a woman and she wants to be in a relationship with somebody who's in their uh who's in their 50s and she's in her 30s, I think the biggest question is, are you going to want to have kids? And will your husband at the age of 50, whatever, want to have kids and be chasing around toddlers, because
Mhm.
it takes a lot of energy. Conversely, if you're a woman in her 50s or, at an age where you're no longer able to, like, have children without maybe, adoption or a surrogate or, foster adopt or egg donor, um, you have to think about, if you're going to date somebody who's in their 30s, is that person going to want to have children?
Yeah.
And whether it's, a same-sex relationship or whether it's a heterosexual relationship, um, you know, uh is that person going to want to, I mean, that's a big step, having kids. So
Yeah.
I think you have to think about that. But if both parties don't want to have children, or if maybe somebody's already had children and they are raised their children already, and then they meet somebody who's young, I don't necessarily think 20 years is a big deal. I mean, if you're playing the what were you doing when this Rolling Stone songs came out game, then yeah, it might seem kind of creepy. Um, but because then your date's like, who are the Rolling Stones?
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I remember reading so there's an age gap, a small age gap between myself and my husband. And I remember being obsessed for a portion of time about age gap relationships, because I was like, somehow maybe justifying the fact that I was older than my husband, which is so ridiculous. It's not like we're 20 years, there's not a 20 years age difference. But I remember seeing that um, uh, Susan Sarandon and her partner, there was a 13-year age gap, and she was 13 years older.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
remember
and Goldie
thinking,
Hawn,
yeah, oh, was Goldie Hawn older than Kurt Russell?
I think so.
Oh,
Isn't she?
I don't know. I wonder by how much.
I mean,
Um, and then also the one that always sticks out in my mind is Emmanuel Macron, who's the president of France, and his wife, who I believe there's more than 20 years in age difference, if I'm
mhm.
not mistaken.
Yeah,
Um,
you know what? It's whatever. Well, it really is. Let's see.
so there is a 24-year age gap between Emmanuel Macron. He's 24 years younger than his wife. So that's actually a substantial age gap.
Yeah.
24 years, I will say that, yeah, uh, I mean, I've seen pictures where it's not noticeable at all. Um, she's very pretty, she's very stylish, but at the same time, I mean, 25 years, girl. I don't know.
That's
Like,
a whole human being.
I know, right?
No, I guess Goldie Hawn was only like 6 years older than Kurt Russell. Are they even together anymore? I don't know.
Yeah, but I think their big thing was that they never got married. They just figured it wasn't like a necessary thing. Like, they were
Mhm.
together, they made a life together. I remember reading tabloids when I was in college saying that they also had a very, like, loose definition of relationship, in that, not that it was an open relationship, but that, like, but she was open to, if he wanted to have extramarital affairs with someone, and and well, they weren't married, but if he, as long as she was okay and consenting that he was with somebody and vice versa, then it was okay. But I don't know if
Yeah.
that was tabloid or if that was a real thing.
No, I think I read something as well that she said she didn't think, monogamy was like realistic. And yeah, I just got the feeling from the article that she would be okay with him having other, relations, because she felt it was just a natural human instinct or need, to be with other people. And it didn't affect, she made it sound like it wouldn't affect their relationship because she understood like the human, you know
Right.
human nature. And instead of like making such a hard line, like if you do this, it's over type of thing, she really had like more of a philosophical look on it. And um and I just got the feeling from the article like she was speaking more about him, like if he wanted to, or maybe she was talking about herself. I don't know. She was probably talking about the both of them. But yeah, she was okay with it. And yeah, I did read that too. It wasn't like it was an open marriage, but well, and they're not even married. But she just was like, like I said, she's philosophical about it. She was like, it's not, it doesn't mean that we don't love each other any less. It's just basically just human nature, right? So
Right.
yeah, I
Well,
mean,
it's funny that we started talking about dating stories and now we've like branched off into age gap love. I will say that I I mean, what do you think about like the 40-year like age gaps? Like for example, um I read somewhere that Dick Van Dyke's wife is like 46 years younger than him.
I my view at this age, being really close to 60, uh, is so much different than it would have been 20 years ago. 20 years ago, if you'd asked me that, I'd be like, I don't understand that. She's probably after his money, yada, yada. Well, how long had they been married, though? See, this is the thing with some of these 40-year age gaps. I do kind of question it. If now, it depends how long they were together. Before I make my judgment, I have to have all the facts. But I think when I was younger, I would have been in like a hard line, like, no, there's something up with that. You know what I mean? And now that I'm older, I feel like, you know, it- I don't think there's any solid and like perfect relationship. So
Right.
whatever works, if you're 40 years apart, if you're 4 years apart, it's like, it's maybe it works for them, you know?
Right.
I can't judge.
What about
The older I've gotten, the less I've judged. I'm not saying I'm not judgmental at all, but yeah, things are not black and white.
right?
That's what
You're
I've learned.
right.
Why?
Um
How do you feel about that?
I mean, again, I have to go back to Sex in the City and
That's what you
that
base all of your
yeah,
relationship.
that episode where Samantha hooks up with like this really, really wealthy, um, like super wealthy, like owns like one of these like classic New York brownstones and he takes her home and gives her like diamond necklaces and rings and blah blah blah. And then he gets up and runs to the bathroom. And anyone who's seen Sex in the City knows exactly which episode I'm talking about. And he's like, "You don't mind the fact that I'm in my 70s or something like that." And he gets up and runs to the bathroom. And I don't know if he used a stunt double. I don't know if he used like a butt double. I don't know. But like, I gotta tell you, I was like, woo, yowza. I mean, Samantha at the time was probably in her mid 40s.
Hmm.
And she always looked amazing. She always looked like she was 10 years younger than she really was. And
Hmm.
but it was so funny. It was so funny. But yeah. Um I
Well,
don't know.
I
I will say that I feel like 10 years is not really a big deal. I
yeah,
feel like
for
when you
sure.
start looking at like, and also I feel like at a certain point, like if you're in your 60s and you're with somebody who's in their 70s or with somebody who's in their 50s, it's really not a big deal because, I mean, as you get older, I feel like that age gap narrows.
Yes, I
So
totally agree.
for
Yeah.
example, George Clooney is 17 years older than his wife, Amal.
Hmm.
He's 61 or 62. She's in her mid 40s. I don't really think, I mean, George Clooney, he's timeless, right? I mean, he's like what? Always like one of the hottest looking dudes, on the planet and, you know, all that. But, and she's very beautiful as well. I mean, beauty doesn't mean they're going to stay together longer, but it's just, I don't know. Like, then I look at a couple like Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta Jones. I mean, there's a 25-year age difference there.
Hmm.
And Alec and Hilaria or Hillary or I don't know, Baldwin. I don't know if it's Hilaria or
Oh my
Hilaria.
God. So he's in the news now.
We
And
also have to do a podcast dedicated to his wife and why she thinks she's from Spain.
well,
But anyway,
so I was one of my YouTube channels I watched, they were talking about, how he's being charged now with manslaughter,
right.
involuntary manslaughter, but they started talking about his wife and they were showing clips of her.
Yeah.
Like when he first started dating her, when they first were married or their first kid or whatever, she had no accent at
Yeah, because
all.
she's from Connecticut
I heard she was from Boston or something. But anyway,
or Boston.
as the years went on, she like suddenly developed this Spanish accent, like Madonna with her British accent. And
Right.
but if you compare, you were showing clips where she'd go in and out of it, obviously because it's not natural, right? So you like forget, you're like, oh shit,
Right.
use my Spanish accent. But anyway, and that her name is actually Hillary,
Right.
and
It's
she changed it to Hilaria, which
but the
Hilaria
name
is
is
hilarious.
silent, so it's Ilaria.
Oh, anyway. Anyway, we're going off topic, but go ahead. What were you saying about them?
Well, I mean, they have 7 children, Alec Baldwin and Hilaria Baldwin. She, I mean, I mean, that's the other thing you have to think about is, I mean, I always joke around that because I got married and had my kids in my late 30s, that I'll be too old to hold my grandchildren because I'll probably drop them. So they'll have to like hand them to someone else, because I mean, you do have to think about like, but it's another thing if you're worried about your husband holding the kids because he's going to drop them. I'm not saying he's going to drop them at whatever 66 or 67, but I mean, what are the chances that he's going to make it to be able to like walk them down the aisle or hold a grandchild on? I mean, I almost feel like he's living through having his grandchildren now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
I can tell you how much energy I have at the end of the day. And I have 2 teenagers. And
Well,
I'm going to fall asleep and I am somebody who like I don't nap. I have a lot of energy. I'm not like a sit around and watch TV and drink coffee kind of gal. I'm like let's fill the day up with
you
activity.
just described me, but go ahead.
Right. So, but like I can tell you that, and also I'm a nanny. So I work with babies. Like
Well,
that's
I
my
was going to
job.
say that Alec Baldwin probably has 5 nannies because he can afford
Well,
it, and that's
yeah,
how
I
he does it.
thought about that too. If you have a cook and a housekeeper and a nanny and a chauffeur, I mean, let's
Hmm.
gardener, let's just start with those 5 paid positions.
Yeah.
I
Listen,
imagine I would have a lot more free time to do things like sit around and drink coffee.
yeah, someone else would have cleaned up your laundry room this morning if you had Alec Baldwin's bank
That,
account.
that's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I mean, just think about first cleaning.
Yeah.
Joy, if I could afford, I would have someone clean the house. That alone is a lot of energy. So these people, if you can pay for it, and hey, I'm not disparaging them. If I had that kind of money, you bet your butt I'd have a
Right,
cleaner, a cook, and a
right.
masseuse.
Okay, let me ask you this. Which one would you, if you could only pick one out of the gardener, the cleaner, the chauffeur, the masseuse, or the nanny? Well, I mean,
I don't
or,
have kids, so the nanny's
okay, but
out.
let's say dog walker. So
No.
which one would you pick?
Cleaner, cleaner, cleaner.
Ah,
Goes
interesting.
without saying.
I gotta tell ya,
Oh, I hate cleaning, but
the cleaner's invaluable. I mean, I gotta, I instantaneous shout out to Maria. Tuya,
Maria.
somos hermanas de otra mujer. The fact is I can't let go of that woman for anything. She's like my sister from another mister.
And she puts up with your chattering and following her around the house. And
She lets me follow her around the house, crack jokes in Spanish, say rude and derogatory things, and swear. I try out all my swears that I practiced on her. Um, I say all kind of inappropriate stuff. Ugh,
I
she's
would love to be a fly on the wall at her home when she gets home. I'd love to hear what she tells her friends and family about her crazy boss.
that crazy Korean lady who thinks she knows how to speak Spanish.
She's probably like, oh, I don't have the heart to tell her that she's not saying the right thing in
She's
Spanish.
probably like, when she gets home, she's all, you know, that Hilaria Baldwin woman? This woman's worse. Oh my God.
Oh my
Too
gosh.
funny. Too funny. Well, I have to tell you that going through these age gap celebrity love like groups of like and reading about these age gaps and like talking about them was so much more entertaining than the dating stories for sure. But you know what's funny, Cheryl? Once in a while, I'll be talking to my friend Julie, and Julie will say, you remember so many things like from like history and like things that we've done and places we've gone and people we saw. And it's funny the things that one person remembers that another person doesn't remember.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true. Yeah, something that sticks out in your mind, but it was kind of just inconsequential to somebody else.
Everybody have a good week. If you want to leave a comment about a dating nightmare,
tell us what you're dating funny.
we give you a shout out. You never know. And then we'll be back next week with more murder.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Yep. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.